it's teaching kids a very tangible tool, which is business strategies. I think kids and individuals at a younger age should get to learn these techniques and should get to learn these strategies so that they can go out and become entrepreneurs in this, in this United States experience. Our country is set up to promote ingenuity and entrepreneurship. And so anything that promotes that and promotes young people getting the opportunity to build their own business, to build their own brand, and profit off of their sweat and hard work, that should be encouraged. And that is, there's nothing more American than that, in my opinion.
Let me put you on game.
The NCAA recently, as of Thursday, had a landmark decision. And for the first time, all NCAA athletes are now able to make money from a wide variety of business ventures without losing their eligibility. So these athletes will be able to accept money from businesses in exchange for allowing the business to feature them in advertisements or products. They'll also be allowed to use their own status as a college athlete to promote their own public appearances for companies for the first time. And these rules are a little muddy. They differ from state to state and school to school based on what the athletes can endorse. Like, they're not going to, in certain schools, they're not going to be allowed to endorse alcohol or tobacco. And there are some issues with conflicting sponsorships. Like if your school is a Nike school and wearing Adidas on the court may not be allowed. But there's no official across the board rules coming, or I don't know official across the board rules just yet, but they should be coming. But I just wanted to get your perspective on how you feel about the ruling and what you think it means for college athletes.
I mean, kind of my feelings is this is a really big deal. This is a really, really big deal. It's something that college athletes and athletes in general have been talking about for years, decades even. The NCAA has basically, and that organization and the whole kind of superstructure of college sports has been largely exploitative in the way that they have viewed athletes and the language that they use to keep athletes in a certain box and in a certain mold, and while demanding the utmost performance from the top level athletes, while holding things like scholarships over their head and their ability to go to school and get an education. And then you look on the other side with the quality of education that some of the higher, higher echelon athletes get, and it's like they're not really going to class, or they're getting a fake degree, or if it's a one and done athlete, they're taking a bunch of simple easy classes that they don't even have to go to, and all these scandals and scams that have just kind of built up, that have been kind of the underbelly of the dark underbelly of college sports. And this ruling kind of is a major step in removing that veneer and bringing college sports and their college athletes and their compensation into the modern day. They're one of few institutions and select group of people that haven't been able to profit off of their sweat and their accomplishments. And they created a monopoly where these college athletes couldn't monetize themselves. And that's so un-American. It's so anti-capitalism in a lot of ways. And the Supreme Court kind of highlighted that with their ruling. They're like, and I'm really glad that the NCAA, they brought this on themselves, by the way, because they were trying to challenge a ruling and that they had in a fight. And once this went to the Supreme Court, they actually got a favorable ruling in the lower courts. But once this got to the Supreme Court and they looked at the evidence, they're like, this makes no sense, clearly. And that's what people have been saying for the longest. And so I'm just glad to see that these athletes are going to be able to get the ability to sign a t-shirt and charge, make money at like autograph signings, or, be a part of commercials, or just anything that they can do to kind of bolster their life and their income, because they might not get that opportunity as a pro. We all know that athletes don't always last long. And so I'm just happy overall. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's a great decision. I think it's wonderful for the athletes. You're already seeing athletes signing endorsement deals. I've seen a couple athletes sign with tech companies. There's some twins that play college basketball, two women that are, major social media influencers. So they're going to be able to parlay their social media presence to uh, financial gain, which is great, especially when you consider the careers of women in college sports. Like for so many of them, college sports can be the end. Or if they're going into a WNBA pay structure where they're only making 50K a year, like college presents an opportunity for them to actually make a large amount of money, or for them to set up endorsement opportunities that can last past their college career.
Right.
So there's so much that this opens up, and I'm really happy for the athletes because, like you said, it kind of it creates the situation where there's transparency, because so many times the athletes are the ones that get the brunt of the blame when this kind of stuff goes wrong or it comes out, and they're vilified for it, or they're considered to be greedy, when in reality these kinds of pay to play or under the table interactions occur on a regular basis, and the schools are the ones that are doing it, or are the ones that are um, primarily
Facilitating.
pushing it. Yeah, facilitating. That's a good
Yeah,
word for it.
they'll use intermediaries like boosters, or certain kind of shady characters that'll slip 50K underneath a college player's parents' house, and now the parents have the ability to buy a car, or get a nice watch, or fund the kids tattoo interest.
Yeah,
And it removes all those hurdles and makes it a more straightforward and balanced game. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
right. Yeah, it's just it kind of takes some of the hypocrisy out of it. I think the NCAA is still a terrible organization. And like you said, it wasn't out of the kindness of their hearts that they did this, because they've resisted this move for so long. It's been almost like pulling teeth when it should have been happening so long ago. Uh, and you also
Yeah.
have to wonder their exact, like outside of the court case, you have to wonder their exact motivations for doing it. Like I think that part of it was a court case, but I think also they might see the writing on the wall. I think that if you look at especially men's basketball, with we've discussed the G League in terms of NBA draft prospects, but from the other end, before they get to the NBA draft, a lot of those guys like a Jalen Green, Jonathan Kuminga, or other G League Ignite members, like they were slated to go to college,
Yeah.
and they elected to take the money from the G League and all the opportunities that provided over college basketball. So if they were the first to do that, it only stands to suggest that many athletes after them are going to continue to do that. So the NCAA is probably looking at that like, we can't beat that. We can't beat just straight up giving these kids 500K. So we have to figure out a way for us to be able to keep these kids, like in general, get them to go to school, and then also keep them in school after they actually arrive on campus.
So what's interesting though is that NCAA, you would think that they would think that, but that's not the case actually. They were forced to make their hands were forced in this action because of that Supreme Court ruling. So they had to actually change their rules. If it was
Okay.
up to the NCAA, they would have kept buried their head in the sand and said, "You college athletes are amateurs. This is amateurism. You should not be able to profit off your likeness. We do not have to pay you. You're getting scholarships. Just thank us for your education." Like
Which is
that
dumb. That's so dumb. Because like I said, like I'm just trying to play like armchair psychologist and like try to get like I'm trying to think of it from a smart business perspective. But like you said, like it wouldn't surprise me if they were that dumb to just be forced by the Supreme Court to make this decision without
yeah.
considering the actual benefits of making the decision. Like, I don't know, keeping 5-star rated athletes in your pipeline. But I mean, like you
And
said, it's probably that case. But go ahead.
so,
Sorry.
and what, yeah, no, another fascinating wrinkle of this, because I was listening to some people who are really into this whole college um, collegiate system, and you have a superstructure like the SEC, which is a football, which is a competitive like Division I athletic conference in the South, and they run a lot of the rules in that kind of governs college sports. And so you look at like teams like Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Florida, like all the schools that are down there, and they the people that govern those institutions have a certain interest in the way things are and in the status quo. And apparently, they gave the current president of the NCAA an extension because he's one of those guys that is kind of a figurehead. He's there to just keep the train moving along as according to schedule, and they're not fundamentally interested in athletes having more power, in having more say, in having more of an ability to kind of determine their own destinies. And
Yeah.
so you have to look at who is incentivized to keep the status quo the same. You follow the money and you realize, okay, there are people who were fundamentally not interested in it. But ultimately, justice has prevailed because of the NCAA's own idiocracy in a lot of ways. Because they brought this case to the courts to try to win, you
Yeah.
know? And going forward, I think, like I said, the market now plays a role in college players, compensation. They can now determine their future a little bit better. And so, let's say a college athlete decides to create an LLC, selling, T-shirts with his logo or name or likeness on it. A booster or somebody affiliated with the school can decide to fund that LLC now and become a
Yeah.
private investor. And thus they're
Completely changes
getting
the game. Yeah.
it
It's
completely changes the game. And you see a lot more of that. But I think the biggest thing that I think is dope about this is that it's teaching kids a very tangible tool, which is business strategies. I think kids and individuals at a younger age should get to learn these techniques and should get to learn these strategies so that they can go out and become entrepreneurs in this United States experience. Our country is set up to promote ingenuity and entrepreneurship. And so anything that promotes that and promotes young people getting the opportunity to build their own business, to build their own brand, and profit off of their sweat and hard work, that should be encouraged. And that is, there's nothing more American than that, in my opinion.
yeah, for sure. I think there's been some issues with athletes like taking hundreds of dollars in money from outside sources and then getting popped by the school for that without the school realizing that, or realizing but not really caring that they probably have made millions off of this athlete. Like
Yeah.
if Zion took 400K, 500K, like is that really that big of a deal when Duke made, probably upwards of $8 to $10 million just off of his likeness alone because of how many ticket sales, how much national TV revenue he actually was able to make for these companies and for these schools. So it also brought up an interesting question for me, which is like retroactively with these athletes in the past that have gotten reprimanded for accepting money, like what happens to them? Like if you want to look at a couple, like two different athletes from two different sports, if you want to look at Reggie Bush, who allegedly accepted 300,000 from an outside source from USC, like he got completely railroaded by the NCAA. He lost his Heisman
Yeah.
Trophy. The USC vacated their wins that season. They lost scholarships, a national championship. So it's like, are all of those things that were taken away from them, are they going to be reinstated? Or if you look at a group like the Fab Five, they are one of the most influential
Yeah.
entities in sports history, regardless of college or professional sports. So their banners are still locked away in a closet somewhere. So because of allegations of accepting money, and they made, I'm sure, even for the 90s, I'm sure they made the University of Michigan millions of dollars. So are you going to retroactively turn back and actually not only reinstate them, but create a situation where you actually give them their just due for what they actually brought to the university? You know, so
Right.
you got to ask that.
That's a great question. Um, you do, and I had those same points. I'm like, all of those awards should all be given back retroactively. If the NCAA and these schools would have done right by these players over all these years, you hear the complaints, you hear athletes saying that they're broke, that they're hungry, run out of meal points, whatever the case is, but they are practicing hard, they're going to class, and then the coach or the someone else in the school is like, hey, well, if you're hungry or if you need X, Y, and Z, get a job. And it's like, are you kidding me? What time do I have to get a job during the season?
Yeah.
If the schools were to do right by these players and maybe created some type of trust where they say, hey, after you graduate, here's a percentage of what you brought to the table, we'll have that for you once you leave the school. Like if they could have done progressive, thoughtful things that kind of make sense, some type of retirement package because they're basically employed by the school with how much they're working. Um, you could have, I feel like they could have staved this off. But because they've been all or nothing, zero sum game, this is what you get. Almost, I hate to say, but almost like a modern day slave and exploitation. It's just that it's been kind of covered by the veneer of school and higher education and
Well,
scholarships
most of the athletes
and
are black, and most of the executives are white. So it's not, it's, you don't have to reach too far for the analogy, you know?
yeah. And you say to yourself, I'm just glad I think justice is finally served. And hey, the NCAA doesn't have to worry about as much now, right? They don't have
Right.
to do as many investigations into this person or that person getting money or checks. So
Because they're
hopefully
getting their own money in checks. Yeah.
exactly. So hopefully everybody can maybe relax a little bit, focus on other stuff like actually making the lives of these athletes in college better.
Yeah.